Hello and welcome to session 6 of the Business School Leaders Forum, brought to you by GoToWebinar by LogMeIn. Today I'm joined by Denis Morisset, Director of Executive Luxury Marketing Programs from ESSEC Business School, and Patti Brown, MBA Director of ESSEC Business School, who will be presenting on building a strategy to deliver specialist business school programs. So in a moment, I'm going to pass over to Denis, who will start the presentation. And there will be a Q&A session at the end. So if you do have any questions, feel free to type them in during the presentation. Hopefully we can get to ask them all at the end of the presentation. So I'll pass over to Denis to start the presentation.
All right, thank you. Do you all see my screen?
They can see your screen, Denis.
All right, you can see my screen, right?
Yes, everyone can see it. Everyone can see your screen, Denis, so we can go into the presentation. Yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I will take you through a short presentation of what ESSEC did with this specialist program in luxury. And for this, I prepared a short agenda with basically 3 parts. A quick introduction on the luxury industry sector, and then a little bit about the timeline of how ESSEC and the luxury industry developed what I call a love affair. And then I will focus more on our flagship product, which is the ESSEC Global MBA in Luxury Brand Management, and I will present it to you with the why and the how. And then obviously I will pass it back to Patti, and we will have a Q&A session. Maybe a quick introduction on myself. I am an ESSEC graduate. I worked 25 years in the luxury fashion industry as a MD, CEO, COO for different brands such as Armani, Ralph Lauren, Pierre Balmain. And then I've been for 15 years a professor of marketing, luxury marketing in ESSEC Business School. So about this quick introduction on the luxury industry sector, I don't know how you guys are familiar, but I like to always start showing two numbers. The late 80s, because this is the moment the luxury sector became a significant industry sector. Before it was more anecdotic. And today, the globally accepted figure is that if you include everything that goes from personal luxury to experiential luxury, including the luxury car sector, we are talking about a sector that generates around 1.3 trillion euro sales per year. Well, actually, that was before COVID. What is interesting in this industry is it has been extremely famous for a number of brands that are connected with what we call the personal luxury goods, which is basically everything you can wear, from fashion, accessories, watch, jewelry, beauty, and more it's moving towards experience, the luxury car being kind of a bridge between the two. And there's a number of very interesting evolutions here with this kind of shift from ownership, which is for many clients today maybe less essential compared to access and experience. What you see here on this slide is more or less the size of each sector, and you have on the bottom left the personal luxury goods, which is still a very important one, obviously, and then the luxury car, the luxury hospitality, wine and spirit, etc. A very interesting phenomenon that we obviously deal with in our programs is this crossover. There's a lot of brand extension. Maybe you heard about designer hotels such as Armani, Bulgari hotels. We had LVMH making the acquisition of Belmont after developing its own hotel brands. So it's a very interesting moment here. And what obviously has been essential is to understand how it became a strong business, a strong industry sector. And it has to do with a phenomenon of democratization, which is really in the late 70s and more in the late 80s, the growth in Europe, in America first, and in Asia of these middle classes. As you can see here, at my time, when I was really young, I estimate there were maybe around 4 million luxury consumers, who were courageous enough to push the door of a Cartier store or enter the lobby of the Ritz Hotel in Paris. And today, with China, with India, with everything, we're talking about 400 million. So that's, of course, still only 5% of the world population, but that's a tremendous growth. The number of clients has been multiplied by 100. The rest of the slide is a bit more complicated, but basically what it says is that from the top luxury brand called absolute luxury to the more accessible luxury brand, there's also a kind of game where everyone is basically trying to move in the direction of the others to expand its category, its business. Here, I just put a small zoom on the personal luxury category, because in ESSEC, in most business schools, this is still the main sector that we focus on, from, as I said, fashion, which covers apparel and as well as accessories, shoes and leather goods, watch and jewelry, and beauty are the main part. There's also eyewear, which is an interesting sector, sunglasses and frames for optical glasses. You just see here in 2019, which have been the most dynamic segments. It's basically shoes, interestingly, which is now growing a little faster than leather goods, bags, and jewelry. Jewelry seems to offer a lot of growth for potential for growth, sorry. And last but not least, what you see here is that if we look at the last 40 years, it seems that the luxury industry showed relatively good resilience to crisis. However, you know, it's not so simple, because if you are a little bit familiar with what happened, you probably remember that back in the 80s, the Americans were very important clients. Then the Japanese became more and more instrumental, and then came the period of Chinese bulimia. So, for instance, post-financial crisis of 2008-9, the industry had a very quick rebound. It's true, but at the same time, it was the moment when the industry was growing in China with Chinese consumers 30% a year. So obviously, that also helped when we talk about resilience. The big question on everyone's lips at the moment, obviously, is about COVID. And in our program, all the businesses, the companies, the groups we work with, they all have this question, and our students have been working a lot on that. And it's really ongoing. What is absolutely clear is that COVID will have a strong impact. There is no point in trying to deny this. The luxury sector is among the sectors which is, for the moment, probably suffering the most, maybe not as much as tourism, hospitality, and aviation, but still, it's strongly affected. And the real question is it temporary, or will it have a longer term effect? Are consumers going to change fundamentally their ways of consumption? As you probably know, this industry is very strong on creating amazing experience for the consumers in the luxury stores. And that's also the question about, will luxury clients go back to stores as before? So in a way, and just allow me a small joke, 2020, 21 probably will be hard for this industry, so maybe a good year to study MBA. All right, so now I would like to take you a little bit through this love affair, which is relatively recent, but still ongoing, between ESSEC and the luxury sector. So just a quick flashback on ESSEC. ESSEC, like a luxury brand, has a long history. It has cultural foundation. It was born in 1907, initially sponsored by Jesuits, and it started in Paris. And we moved to Cergy-Pontoise in the north of Paris to get more space in 1974. What you can see here is that innovation has always been truly at the heart of ESSEC. It's one of our values, as well as humanism and putting a lot of focus on the human aspect of doing business. The school is today, I mean, the business school is still strongly French, but it's much more international than it was at my time. We also have a big campus in Singapore and smaller one in other places. As far as luxury is concerned, I told you that this industry became serious basically at the end of the 80s. And there is a key date. It's also the creation of LVMH, which happened exactly at that moment in the second part of the 80s. So it should not be a surprise to you to see that it's in 1991 that LVMH, which was at that moment a young conglomerate, maybe with all the brands, but very young as a conglomerate, was looking for an academic partner to start doing some research on the topic of luxury brand management as opposed to brand management in general. So in 1991, honestly, not many business schools would have invested in the luxury industry. And this is where ESSEC was truly innovative and took a risk. It was far from obvious that it would have the destiny it had in the next 30 years. So our love affair started then with LVMH, but then 4 years later, the school initiated a feasibility study. We talked to L'Oréal, we talked to other groups, to Chanel, to Hermes, and we found out that they were all interested in an MBA that would specialize in developing expertise with a strong focus on this industry. So this is the moment ESSEC created this MBA, ESSEC MBA in International Luxury Brand Management, which was absolutely, without any question, the first ever luxury MBA program, and has remained almost alone for many years. Of course, it's very different today. ESSEC continues to innovate and develop partnerships. I just mentioned a few here. Another chair on exceptional know-how was developed with Chanel, and VCA stands for Van Cleef and Arpels, this beautiful jewelry brand from Richemont. And then the ESSEC MBA in Luxury Brand Management became a major in the global MBA program of ESSEC to give it even more exposure and to create more interaction between these students and the students of the most generalist tracks. And then even more recently, this year, we signed a new chair with Estée Lauder on beauty. With L'Oréal, we have a very strong partnership, so there was no need for a chair as such. To focus 1 second on this ESSEC Global MBA in Luxury Brand Management, it's a typical, I would say, European MBA program, meaning it's a 1-year program with, of course, in English. We are leveraged on our 2 campuses, but for luxury, it's only Paris. The target students are 30 years plus minus, and we basically leverage on field trips, as I will show you later, and on a 3-month capstone project, which is more relevant than internships for this kind of professionals. So I will spend a little more time now and slow down a little to really share with you what is so unique about this ESSEC Global MBA in Luxury Brand Management. And I will explain to you a little bit the why and the how. So the why. What is the purpose of having an MBA specialized? It's actually a paradox in a way, because MBAs were initially by definition generalist. So there was something totally unorthodox to create a specialized MBA. Actually, ESSEC had this ability to be sometimes disruptive. And we also have another program which was a mix of MBA and master in hospitality, where I also teach. So we did the same thing more or less in the hospitality and tourism sector. But for the luxury brand management, the purpose was really first for the industry to contribute to the creation and development of the business of luxury. It's probably hard for some of you to imagine, but when I was appointed, I was very young, CEO of Pierre Balmain in 1989. At that moment, it was really the beginning, as I told you. The word marketing did not exist. Luxury brands thought that marketing was something that was not important. They didn't even know what was marketing. So I think this is really what LVMH realized very quickly when they created all these, purchased all these brands. There was a lot of literature, a lot of great professors who had written a lot of books, Kotler and so many others, on brand management, but luxury brand management, no. So this is the paradox that in a way, luxury brands are older than a lot of FMCG brands. They were sometimes born 200 years ago, but they were more family houses than brands until the late 80s. And in fact, brand management was created before luxury brand management. Luxury brand management is really something that ESSEC strongly contributed in developing with LVMH, differentiating it from traditional brand management. So the whole purpose was really to help professionalize that sector, build the business of luxury, accompany the transformation of family houses in conglomerates. And then another important aspect, as you probably know, this industry since the early 90s has been developing largely thanks to Asia. And it started with Japan. It moved on then with Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, and of course, nowadays, mostly China. And in all these countries, the consumers had no knowledge of luxury, even less than in Europe. At least in Europe, in the US, to a lesser extent, people have some understanding of the luxury culture. These names resonate a bit. But in Asia, it was absolutely not the case. And luxury brands, luxury conglomerates could recruit people. They had to recruit a lot of local people, but they had to find ambassadors. And what they also enjoyed with ESSEC is that we had a very international cohort of students. And we had, from the beginning, a lot of Asians. I still remember when I started teaching in this program in 2004, it was the moment, the switch between Japan and China. So we had up to 8 Japanese in the program, and we started to have a few Chinese. And of course, today now we have 8 to 10 Chinese. So things have evolved with the development of the industry. But for our partners, they really enjoy finding among our graduates the future ambassadors, those who will train the trainers locally and who will bring, because they had the chance to spend 1 year in France, 1 year in Paris, they have been immersed in the culture of luxury. They will be able to bring this understanding of the luxury culture to their home countries. So make them ambassadors of the luxury culture and of course, primarily of the French luxury culture. Just to remind you, the timeline of luxury conglomerates, this key date is 1987, when LVMH was created by the merge of Moet Hennessy. There had been a little bit of merger acquisition in champagne and spirits, which is a little bit more between mass and luxury, but LVMH really started 1987. Richemont followed, and Kering followed 10 years later. But as you can see, initially these groups were relatively small, and they have been growing a lot through M&A in the past 30 years. In the US, the same trend, but of course to a lower extent, because the luxury culture is not as developed. So Estée Lauder, like L'Oreal, made a lot of acquisitions. And then in the fashion industry, we had PVH, the merge of Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, Arrow, Van Heusen. Then Coach created Tapestry after acquisition of Kate Spade, Stuart Weitzman, and Michael Kors, Jimmy Choo and Versace. But in terms of what these groups represent, they are still very small compared to the European group, and they are not even big enough to be present on this chart where I show you the 7 biggest players of the luxury industry. The 7 biggest players are here, and what you see here also, which is interesting, is how the concentration is on the rise. I keep following these figures year on year. 12 years ago, these same 7 key actors represented 25% of the global personal luxury sector. Now they represent 42%. And with the acquisitions ongoing, Tiffany by LVMH, etc., is going to go beyond 50% very soon. So this is another element about the professionalization of this industry. All right, now the second why is now about the candidates. Why do they choose to spend a significant amount of money and follow this program? Well, I would say that it's two reasons for the participant. It's very interesting. And it has always been like this, no big change in percentages. First, it's, I should start with the second one, because first, it's a way for them to do an MBA, but an MBA that will help them to facilitate a career shift into the luxury industry. And we have had amazing success stories with lawyers, consultants, bankers, after 6 years in their industry, realizing they were well paid, but they didn't have any passion for their job. And maybe they had a passion for fashion, for luxury, but they had not followed their passion initially, and they regret. And they came here to ESSEC to do this MBA to facilitate this career shift. So in fact, 70% of our participants do not come from the luxury industry. Of course, it's our job to make sure that they are still not too far, that they have the right mindset. And we put a lot of focus in the interview on that element. It has to be win-win. The second objective is also to boost, to enable people who are in this industry, whether they are Americans working for Ralph Lauren, Coach, Estée Lauder in New York, for LVMH in Europe, but mostly in Asia, who have started a career and they would like to boost their career. They would like their career to become more international. And they need for that to go through the case Europe and the case France in particular. So that is an interesting mix, because in our student class, we have complementarity and diversity in terms of the professional background of the participant. All right, now the how. So this is my preferred part, because it's really easy for me to explain to you how we do that. I've been involved with this MBA since 2004, even before, because when I was a CEO, I used to be some of the industry leaders. I was talking to the students as a CEO. I was giving projects, so it was relatively easy for me to move on and become a professor and a director. So I will take you quickly through these 8 key elements. The first one, and it's really absolutely crucial, is to bring the students to France for them to understand the roots of luxury, the roots of traditional luxury brand, at least. And France and Paris, it's a little bit different, are both equally important, because we can see a lot of companies. We can visit workshops. We also have a lot of fashion, artistic, cultural events. So, for instance, through these images, which I could take a long time, I will not, to tell you how they represent the history of luxury in France, whether it's our amazing constructions, whether it's the Louvre, whether it's the Vendôme Plaza, whether it's Versailles, whether it's the Place de la Concorde. Being immersed 1 year in France is so important. Let's not forget, And it's not because I'm French I said that, but everyone in the industry knows that. Luxury, as we know it today, has been really invented in France. Maybe not by LVMH, like sometimes they like to say, but certainly by the Renaissance, the French Renaissance, and then Louis XIV, who played a key role. Italy is, of course, never far, but because of its centralization, the Italian Renaissance moved to the French Renaissance. Maybe some of you remember how France was able to attract these Italian painters, artists, Da Vinci being a good example. And obviously the century of light, the Louis XIV, the Versailles, Colbert, his minister, who really wanted to use luxury and who started to protect craftsmanship, to encourage the development of manufacture in France. It was a key moment in the development of the luxury industry. And you can see here how the Comité Colbert represents all the know-how. And it even includes the car industry with brands as old as Bugatti, Crystal with Baccarat, Saint Louis, Lalique, etc., etc. And luxury hotels like the Ritz, Le Crillon in Paris, which also have a long history. So the other thing which our students can really understand being in France is the know-how. In French, savoir-faire, it's even a word we should not translate. So, you know, we take them to all these places to really be immersed in this know-how, which is probably the strongest protection for luxury brands today, and they cultivate it with, for instance, l'école and also a lot of workshops. Another thing, the second how is really about the engagement with the industry. As I told you, I was myself as an ESSEC alumnus contributing when I was the CEO of Giorgio Armani, but now we have all the leaders of the industry. They all know us. They all come to ESSEC for this MBA, for the LVMH chair, for other events. And our students have really a lot of opportunities to develop, to boost their knowledge by hearing from them. They share their experience. The third element is because our program is a boutique program, so we are able to create this one-to-one mentoring, and we have Anthea Davis, who has been with the program since the beginning. She even participated in the feasibility study. She has a background as a headhunter in the luxury industry, and she is dedicated all her time as a career counselor, corporate relations director. And yeah, so it's a big strength of the program, this one-to-one mentoring by us. And also each student has a mentor from the industry who volunteers to give a little bit of his time to one student each year. The fourth key element, I think, is how we try to emerge also the participants through some projects. Of course, many professors have case studies, but I will just show you here three things. Retail internship, it's short, but we want all our students to spend at least 1 week. Sometimes they add a few weekends on their own in the luxury stores in Paris. Then in my course on luxury retail, I force them now to do offline, online mystery shopping. And we have the capstone consulting project, which is really a consulting project. We call it field project, which basically ends up the year. And all luxury brands have been giving us projects. This is just this year, some of the companies that trusted our students, and they work by a group of four or five on this project, coached by the company, coached by a professor as well. The fifth key element is the networking. Obviously, this industry is very professional. Nothing can be done just by introduction. However, the first thing I tell the students when they enter is you have to build your network. we're going to help you, but you're going to be instrumental in building up your network. We're going to make it easier. We're going to help you. Alors, it's also, to be honest, one advantage of ESSEC, because we have a lot of graduate students, not only from the MBA, who work in the luxury industry. I estimate that we have around 3,000 alumni who are working in this industry, whether they did the Grande École, the Master in Management, a specialized master, even a bachelor program, or obviously MBA, or even EMBA, 3,000. And as China is also critical, we have had, they are not all working in the luxury industry, but we have now more than 3,000 Chinese alumni working around the world, but mostly in China, which is, of course, a big help for the students. Alors, the sixth element, and I'm very sensitive to it because we talked about France a lot, but we need to talk about the three other key markets. Italy, because Italy and France are both really behind the growth of the luxury sector. Italy may be more on fashion, design, furniture. And we want our students to also understand fully the Italian ecosystem, so we take them 1 week. We do Milan, Firenze, or Milan, Roma, and these are some of the brands we usually meet. I insisted a lot to bring back New York. So now we go to New York. I will show you in a few seconds. America remains the second biggest luxury market after China. And of course, we go to Shanghai, we go to China, where which is now the #1 market for luxury. So these 3 weeks where we meet a lot of brands are, of course, a strong element in the program. Why? You have the answer here. Because today, in terms of consumers, nationalities, Chinese come first with more than 35%, Americans #2 with 22%. Chinese, the percentage is probably likely to even grow more with COVID, but this is, for the moment, still a little bit speculative. So anyway, China and America are the key markets for luxury. All right, then I'm almost done. 7, keep up with luxury trends. I will let Patti, because he has a lot to tell you on that. We have a lot of initiatives. I will just give you one example. This year, because we could not travel to China, so I created a course on doing business in China, which is easy for me because I live now for 10 years between China and France, and my wife is Chinese. So, and I put a lot of emphasis on what is the hottest topic at the moment, which is live streaming, among other elements, short videos, live streaming. So we try to obviously constantly change the curriculum to really align with what the industry needs the most. And last, and it's not the less important point, I think, because we have been here for 25 years, we have understood it has taken a while sometimes, you know, like in old schools, you have sometimes some small conflicts, I would say, between pure academic and professionals. So we have learned to live together, to work together, and we have understood that a program like this needs the right mix. And we have, of course, an important involvement of our permanent academic faculty. We have 170 full-time professors from 37 nationalities. We have also, and I belong to this part, permanent luxury professional faculty. And then we use lecturers working in the luxury industry who are still often working, but like to give regularly conferences. So I think you really need the three. And the combination of the three is absolutely one of our goodwill. Because I didn't introduce myself so much, and you cannot see me because my webcam is not working. So at least you have a picture of myself here, and you see a little bit my biography, which is really a mix of professional experience, 25 years. I can never change that, but 15 years teaching full-time, which is also very big. So I think I'm really an interesting mix of both. And then, you know, China being so important, I think it's also good that I spend so much time in China and have a son who has created an IoT company in Shanghai. So I have a lot of cases also around me in China. So voilà, but I don't want to talk too much about me, but it was just to show you how we are trying to leverage on these three important elements in our faculty. So voilà, as a conclusion, for me, I will just say that, of course, we are a little worried about the evolution of COVID. For the moment, the impact on the luxury industry is very big. However, you know, in history, we have never seen the luxury industry going down too long. It's hard actually at the moment to really predict the rebound, but there are a number of elements we should keep in mind. You know, luxury is still driven by what we call ultra high net worth individuals, to a lesser extent by high net worth individuals. The middle classes are important, but they come number three. So for the first two categories, I don't think it's maybe fair, but it's likely that they will end up being sometimes richer after COVID than poorer. So I'm not too worried about the fact that this industry will still have this big purchasing power consumers. Second, what is probably interesting is that the industry will need to evolve. We talk a lot about sustainability, we talk a lot about innovation, and it's actually amazing because in a moment like this, the luxury industry needs people, young people, who understands what young people want. One slide I didn't show you, but maybe you know that the future of this industry is really in the hands of millennials, and in Asia, even more Gen Z, those who are just 20 years old at the moment and less. Obviously, they are born with a mouse, they are born with social media. So there is absolutely no question in my mind, luxury brands after COVID will need to find a way to understand how to reach them, how to use more short videos, live streaming. And in a way, a school like us, programs like us will be even more important than ever. So that's my optimistic conclusion. And after that, I will leave it to Patti to develop a little bit, and we'll stay here for Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Denis. I will just be saying a few words and touch points on the evolution of luxury and how the school has been working with that and sustainability. It's important that we're always one step ahead of everybody else in terms of what's going on in the market. What do our graduates need to know when they're getting out to the job market to be attractive to future employers? One of these things is also working in a virtual reality situation. Now with sustainability, with COVID preventing travel, we have partnered up with startups such as Lablaco, which is incubated by Kering, that they were the people that ran the Circular Fashion Summit last year, Sustainability and Station F. We partnered with them so that our participants will come on campus August 30th, and they will have virtual reality glasses that will connect them to several conferences throughout the year. Twice a month, they will have joint conferences with Parsons School of Design in New York, and then 3 times a year, they will be able to join these summits. Who's in these summits? You've got everything from Balenciaga to Vogue, to the head of innovation for Adidas, for Nike, for Google X, and they will be able to have one-to-one networking with these people and learn about what's going on in the world of sustainability. So these are ways that the program is working with professors and industry leaders to make sure that our graduates are attractive to employers once they get out of the MBA program, given that we have so many career switchers. So with that, I think that Denis has covered everything as usual perfectly. Maybe we can open up to Q&A now.
Thanks, Patti and Denis, that was brilliant. So we have had a lot of questions come in. So obviously, if you do have any further questions, please feel free to type them in, and hopefully we've got enough time to answer them all. So the first question is, why do you think luxury in particular requires different or specialist skills versus other business sectors? So would you like to answer that one, Patti?
I think Denis is also, luxury is heritage. It's knowing exactly where the materials come from. It's a deep, it would be like, why do you need an architectural degree to be an architect? You really need to have the skills, the industry knowledge to be able to know what you're talking about going in. Luxury is that. It's unique items sold to unique people all around the world. It's the rarity of it. Denis, would you like to add more?
Of course, because it's a very important question. I think it's really about what makes luxury. There is that interesting mix of accessibility, because it's a business, and exclusivity. So understanding, how to combine both is very important. In terms of brand management, it's really interesting, because if you ask L'Oreal, why they created a division for luxury beauty brands, because managing a brand like L'Oréal Paris or Maybelline, which are great brands, but they are mass market brands, and managing a brand like Lancôme is quite different in terms of storytelling, in terms of attention to details. Luxury is really about detail. So yes, everyone in the industry will tell you, if you want to work in this industry, you need to at least understand that. You need to have a chance to be immersed in that luxury culture.
Fantastic. So we've got another question. What are the challenges associated with luxury in terms of teaching and learning? Can you offer some solutions on how to solve this? So do you want to go first, Denis?
Between teaching and learning, one of the challenge, obviously, is also one of the opportunity. We have very diverse students, and I think this diversity is very important. It enriches the group work. An MBA is mostly about group work. At the same time, their level in terms of understanding the industry, in terms of understanding marketing, also in terms of finance, could be very different. So as a professor, I would say one of my challenge is to try and really adjust so that the whole class can be more or less, aligned with what we're teaching. And for this, we have developed a curriculum which is progressive. For instance, I would give one of the first course, which is really about understanding the pillars of luxury and luxury brand management, where I will put everyone at the same level in terms of understanding where luxury comes from, its artistic and cultural roots. So there are different ways we do that.
Patti, would you like to add anything onto that?
No, there's nothing. We'll add. I think that there's several other questions, and we're running short on time. So go ahead with the next question.
Okay. So what other employers do you work with in order to deliver the program, and how does the partnership work in practice?
I could perhaps start. There's several partnerships that we have. If we take the example of, let's say, L'Oréal Luxe, which has been one of our oldest partners as well, it's a group that participates from beginning to end in the program. They are part of our admissions juries to spot early talent. They give us field projects. They come in throughout the year with several projects and challenges for our students to take on during the year. They open their offices to us. They're part of our 25th anniversary partners that would be part of our luxury cocktail celebrations on that. They also contribute to what we need to have in the curriculum. We do the same thing with LVMH. Last year, one of the major changes on the curriculum, so outside of the classroom, was the need to provide a certificate program in Power BI for all of our luxury brand management majors. The groups were telling us, LVMH and L'Oreal, that they use Power BI to track sales and communicate between offices. So it's a way of visualizing data. So we brought the company that actually trained Chanel in for a week of intensive certificate training for our luxury MBA. Denis, do you have anything else to add?
Yes, maybe quickly one. I think that one of the secrets is to make it win-win for the companies and for our students. And if I take an example, which is a mentoring program, you may think, why would the CEO, marketing directors, HR directors who are very busy, why do they take the time to mentor one-to-one, one of our students each year? Well, it's also because they learn from our students, and we try to help them choose students from which they think they can also learn something. I give you an example. A lot of the people who are mentors are French or are European because they are based here in Paris. A lot of our students are Asian, coming from China, coming from Korea, coming from Japan, or are American. And they may have also an interesting background. So always, and it's the same with the field projects, we really make sure that the companies at the company level or at the individual level also get something in exchange for this collaboration.
I would just add one thing, Denis. You made me think of a good example of this year. We do networking events once a month, where for 25 to 30 MBA students, we have 20 to 25 industry leaders that come in and actually have dinner with them. It's more than a cocktail. They spend 2-3 hours to have mentoring moments. And also these employers are fishing for new talent. To Denis' point about our Asian participants, one of the people that participated in our very last face-to-face networking event is a market study company based out of New York. She was traveling to France for business, and she came to the networking event, and she came looking specifically for Asian students with knowledge of the luxury industry. She's now hired, graduation's in September, she's now hired one of our graduates to do a couple of market studies, and this student will actually open up the office for her in Shanghai once our student has completed her MBA program. So that is a good example of a win-win, and Northern American companies using the knowledge that our Chinese students have about the luxury industry in China.
Thank you, excellent. So another question, what is your forecast for the luxury sector in India and consequently luxury programs? Would you like to answer that one, Denis?
Yes, you know, I remember in 2008-9, I used to go to India more often. I was not so much in China at that moment, and all the industry was really hoping that around 2010 there would be a turning point in India. It didn't happen for a number of reasons, which are still today probably slowing down a little bit the expansion of the Indian market. These reasons are well known by the industry. There's a mix of local culture, which is good probably for India, but has also prevented Indian consumers from being fascinated by European luxury goods as much as Chinese, for instance. Another reason is the level of import duties. Another reason is the complexity of the, I would say, the bureaucracy in India, and also the lack of retail infrastructures. However, you know, I always keep saying demographics, you can't fight demographics. So India is going to emerge very soon as the biggest population in the world. There is a lot of growth in India, maybe even more than in China in the coming years. So there will be a richer middle class that will emerge, and obviously also more high net worth individuals. So I think the timeline for India is probably getting closer. I'm now much more optimistic to see a real growth of consumption by Indian consumers within 2-3 years. But it will be probably more slow and more progressive than it was in China back in 2008-9 for cultural reasons.
And just to add one thing to that, Denis, one of our famous graduates who originally came from India is working for L'Oreal right now. L'Oreal has hired her to work on the expansion into India over the next 24 months. So you're bang on with what you're saying.
Excellent. So we've got another question. How will you keep the virtual networking between students and luxury employers in place in the age of social distancing? Do you want to answer that one, Patti?
Yes, this is actually really exciting. We're the only school that's doing virtual reality, so the cat is out of the bag right now. What we realized is we're actually able to get in touch with a lot more people than we thought. Lablaco has actually scanned the inside, if you know Paris, of the Grand Palais, and we'll be scanning the insides of other famous iconic locations all around Paris so that the events will happen once a month in here. It's not the old virtual reality where you make your own avatar. This is actually yourself walking around in a real atmosphere, which is going to require training for our students to learn how to do that. everybody's becoming adapted to this. If we were to invite the CEO of a certain company on a Thursday night to come out to Hôtel Particulier in Paris, he might say, oh, I'm busy that night, it's kids' night, and they were a little bit reluctant to come. If I tell that same person now, hey, I know you have 2 children, I'm going to give you a pair of virtual reality goggles. If you come and network with our students for 3 hours, the answer has systematically been yes, please. They're very curious how to do that and learn themselves, because that's the future of where we're going. When travel is going to be restricted, conferences. So these are tools that our students will need, even post MBA, moving into meetings in a virtual world.
Excellent. So we'll move on to the next question. What is your plan for the Middle East and Northern Africa region to equip business professionals on this industry?
Well, we got really lucky this year. We're expanding our recruitment into Africa, North Africa, and also other parts of Africa, because we realize there's amazing talent. So I'm speaking not only for luxury brand management, but for the strategy MBA that's based both in Cergy and in Singapore. Next year, we have on board a student from Saudi Arabia, from Nigeria, from Cameroon. So we're getting a lot more diversity from Africa coming in. It's due to heavy marketing and recruitment in those countries, and awarding large scholarships for those people that are less fortunate in terms of their finances, but brilliant students.
Patti, I would
Yes.
like to add one thing. Of course, we often talk about Middle East Africa, and a lot of brands have the headquarters in Dubai to serve also the African market. But for luxury, it's quite different. In a way, Middle East is mature now. It's a significant market around Dubai, UAE, Saudi, which is growing. But it's relatively mature, but it's an important market. What is not mature, but which is going to grow probably a lot, also it's hard to predict when it's going to really boom, is Africa, the west of Africa. And a lot of luxury brands, luxury groups are starting really to integrate Africa. There are some very dynamic economies. A lot of people believe that the next really continent to grow will be Africa. So it's actually, the luxury industry is always looking forward to new territories. And I know that for a lot of big companies, Africa is on the world map.
Amazing. So another question which has come in. What partnerships are you hoping to have in the near future, or will you keep the current partnerships only? So do you want to answer that one, Denis?
For Patti, maybe more for partnerships.
Okay, Patti?
Well, of course, our core partners will never change, and adding new partners is always wonderful, whether that be for field projects, workshops, field trips, networking events. Right now, the big partnership that we were signing was really with Lablaco, incubated by Kering for next year, and then with Parsons School of Design on these joint conferences and joint networking events. But we never know what's headed down the road. We have a big event coming up September 25th to celebrate the 25 years of luxury at the Bristol Hotel, where we will invite all of our industry contacts, alumni, and students. So we'll see what happens then.
Alors, I will add one thing now that you said that, Patti, comes to my mind. For me, because I'm very close to China, obviously I also believe in building up more and more partnerships in China, whether it's with schools over there or whether it's with emerging Chinese brands. There's a lot of designers, and they are, you know, there will be in the future some Chinese L'Oreal. There's absolutely no question. It's just a matter of time. So I think it's really important for us, and I'm really doing it because I'm based here part of the time, is to keep a close eye on this market, because local brand will emerge. They are emerging already, maybe more premium than luxury, but it's also our job to help them recruit their future managers and train their managers.
Excellent. I think we've got time for 2 more questions. So the first one will be, how large are your cohorts, and how does this compare to the numbers seen in other non-specialist programs? Patti, would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, well, it's as with everything in luxury, it's made to measure. We have smaller cohorts depending on the year that can vary from 30 to 40 to 60. We do keep it small because we are specialized, and everything we do is specialized. For example, the field projects this year, we had one student who really wanted to get into wines and spirits and do her field project in that area. If you have a cohort of 100 people, you cannot abide by the wishes of every single person. So we like to make people, their dreams come true on the program, so we do keep it small. It is truly luxury.
Excellent. So got time for one final question. What do you think the future of luxury in higher education will look like? Do you want to answer that one, Denis?
In higher education, yes. I mean, for me, if this industry is to survive, they absolutely need to keep innovating. And innovation is something they can find with our schools and our programs. It's something I would love to develop if I had more time, but innovation is actually one of the key words in this industry, even if they have a lot of traditions, but it's really innovating on tradition. And it's really how to stay relevant. So a lot of the, the courses offered in ESSEC, not only this program, will be very useful for their future managers, for their directors. I'm also thinking about certain executive programs. We have executive programs also for high-level directors and MDs in the luxury industry. So I think we try to be present and to help these people find expertise or find the right people in our different programs. Patti, you would like to add something?
No, that's exactly right. I couldn't have said it better.
Thank you, Patti.
Excellent. So unfortunately, that's all the time we've got for Q&A today. So firstly, I'd like to thank Denis and Patti for an excellent session. We do have another session taking place after this one at 3:30 BST, which will be with Amanda Bauman and Kevin Zittel from Salesforce, who will be presenting on preparing for students for the future of work. I've added a link into the chat, so if you'd like to join that session, feel free to click the link and it will redirect you straight to the booking page. There's also links there where you can view the current recordings of the first 5 sessions, which have already taken place. We do have a lot more sessions coming up this week and next week, so please head over to the website and you'll be able to see the sessions which will take place in the near future. Just lastly, thank Patti and Denis again for a great session, and we hope to see you all soon on another webinar.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you all. Bye-bye.